Hello everybody, Darren here from Republic of Play, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at Planet Zoo and discussing all of the major features that you can expect in the game ahead of its full release on November 5th. The game is currently in a sort of a beta period, where if you pre-order the game, or you have the deluxe edition or whatever the case may be, you're able to play it for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and that beta is coming to an end pretty soon now. Probably by the time this video just about comes out, the beta will be over. So I've been really enjoying the game. I didn't pre-order it, by the way. I did get sent it from Frontier, which is becoming exceedingly rare these days that I get sent anything, so I appreciate them for that. And I've been enjoying the game, so I wanted to discuss, like I said, some of the major features that you can be expecting from it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the animals themselves. No doubt you may have heard already that these are some of the most detailed animals in any video game ever, and especially for the amount of variety that they have. You can have male and females that look different ages. This one has got a little scar under its eye, which means it's probably been in a fight, and we could maybe get a vet to go take a look at it and take care of it. There's an incredible amount of detail. They play with their toys in different ways. They kind of run around and do different things based on their behaviors, all the different animals, and how they cooperate and don't cooperate sometimes together when they fight, and they take care of each other, they sleep, they do all of that stuff. So it's a really in-depth look at them, and they just look so good. We're playing on the full graphics here, and you can just see the fur details, the texture quality, the animation quality. It really is, it is the best that I think I've ever seen for animals in a video game, especially considering, you know, the variety of animals that you do come across. It's not like they're all just horses or dogs or whatever the case may be. There's so many different, you know, animation skeletons that have to be kind of modeled and taken care of and stuff, and it's really cool just to see how they interact with their environment and how other people react to them when they do different things. It's really interesting and unique. They even shit different. pardon my French. So on the topic of animals, you can take a look at any animal and see a bunch of information about it. And one of the coolest things is you can actually go into its Zoopedia, the kind of encyclopedia in the game, and learn more about the animal as well. So you can kind of find out where it's from, where it originates from, whether it's endangered or not, what it kind of needs, and some of this relates to gameplay and some is just kind of informational. So social needs and reproduction is actually very interesting and tied to gameplay, so you can kind of learn, oh yeah, how many should be in an enclosure together, how do they reproduce and how often do they reproduce, and what are the kind of requirements for that. And then there's research that you can do per animal, which we'll get to a little bit later, but vets are going to be doing research on animals once you have them. It pops up with then fun facts, which is kind of neat. It's really fun to actually read about different animals. Obviously, if you're not into animals, you won't have much interest in this stuff, but I am, so I find it quite interesting. And then you get to unlock items then that they'll actually use and need in their habitat. So like a rubbing pillar, a grab ball, that's things that they just play with, you know, little toys to keep them interested and keep them happy. Then there's interspecies enrichment. So the plain zebra that we were looking at is actually kind of interesting in and of itself, because it can be put in an enclosure with several other animals and be totally fine, whereas some other animals prefer much more to be just on their own, kept away from other animals, or just only deal with their own, essentially. So it's kind of interesting. In this little place we have Sable Antelopes with them. The World Records tab isn't actually active at the moment. We'll get to all that later. That's to do with breeding, which is quite interesting. So we have some Sable Antelope in here with them. We can just see he's taking a little drink right now. I actually just got those delivered, so they're brand new. I haven't actually really taken a look at them, but they seem pretty happy where they are right now, so that's good. So the next thing then would be welfare, right? We can check this welfare tab. You can name your animals if you want. You can name them whatever you want. They have an age, you know, they mature over time from being a juvenile to an adult to elderly and so on, and death. And then in the welfare tab, you have your breakdown of nutrition, social habitat, and enrichment. So there are animals, this zebra in particular, Adebayo, is quite happy, 97%. Really happy right now. Its last meal quality wasn't great. I think it's actually a new arrival as well, so I'm not sure if it actually ate in here. It might eat, it's just standing on the food right now, I guess, but he might eat some food in here, and maybe that will go up. So that's going to be based on whether he's eaten or not, how his quality was, whether he's drank or not, and what his quality was then as well. And then you've got the social. So are they in a group of animals that they can kind of get along with? Are they too lonely? Is there too many of them? That all plays an effect. If there's too many, you know, they end up fighting each other for dominance and stuff. And there is something where you can have like the alpha male of the group will try to beat down on the other males in the group as well. And you can actually see that in terms of their animations and how they play out. You know, they look very shy and timid around the alpha male and stuff. It looks really cool. Then there's the habitat, you know, how clean is it, the temperature in the area, the terrain, the plants, the shelter, and then the enrichment. Do they have their toys, their different like little toys and their food enrichment that they can play around with, like whatever it might be. And then the interspecies bonus, how how well are they being mixed with other people. I've actually never seen them do that. It's funny, for the video, I've been talking about how high the quality is, and yet he's kind of weirdly sleeping in the food. I mean, I actually haven't seen that. But yeah, they do tend to sometimes glitch through things, I guess, if we're just being completely honest, which I always am. But yeah, most of the time they do just kind of wander around, and they don't really typically clip into things that often. But every now and then you'll encounter them doing something weird, I guess. This guy's just cleaning up the poop as part of his routine. So that's kind of the, the zoopedia, the welfare, and then there's the breeding aspects, which is quite interesting. So they all have their own genetics, and you can kind of compare the mates with the other ones in the same enclosure. So this is a male. There is no females, I guess, in here. Is there not, for him to breed with? No, apparently not. Yeah, I had a female at the beginning, but she's dead. So let's take a look at a different area, and we can check out maybe the African wild dogs. So the African wild dogs, they're actually one of my favorite animals in the game. I just think they look so cool. They sound awesome as well. But they are really hard to manage. They tend to fight a lot. And that's because the social group, they need a lot of space, even if there's only like 3 or 4 of them. We've only got 4. But anyway, like I was saying, they all have their own genetics. We can go compare mates. And then we have here Jafari, who's a male. And then we have 3 potential females. And you can click into them to change them to see, like, what are the chances? There's a 19% chance of conception here. Apparently, they recently had a go at it and it failed, so for a while they're not able to do it for a while. Then we've got a 4% chance with this other one and a 0% chance, and then it shows you what their offspring is likely to be, their size potential, their longevity, their fertility beyond themselves, and then immunity as well. And then when you research the animals, you actually get like a little bonus because you've learned a bit more about them, and then just like the species fertility in general, how often do they mate and breed. It's actually relatively simple, but it's also quite deep at the same time. It's displayed in a simple way, but it does seem to have a decent amount of depth behind it and how they breed and stuff like that. And that's just a vet coming in to take one of them out at the moment. So the last thing then would be care. So that's actually a perfect tie into that. So every now and then these animals will fight each other, or something might happen where they... It's just so awkward when they take shits. You're just talking, you're like, oh, that's just doing its thing. But anyway, animals will need care every now and then. So you'll have to call a vet to come in, and that'll, if they've got any scrapes. This is the alpha female. I actually had it once where the African wild dog, the alpha female, killed all of the males in there because there was too many of them. And she killed them all before we could get vets in and really deal with it. It happened very fast. So that's the kind of thing that you'd be doing to take care of animals in general. You can also adjust their food quality and things like that to make sure that they're eating well, and make sure that they have their toys and they're good enough space and the correct terrain and all that. And that's essentially it. So once you've got it all ready, you can sort of just set it and forget it. You don't really ever have to come back to an animal and deal with it too much. Although it is good to like check in with them every now and then, just check, are they beaten up or whatever. You can set routes for vets to come visit to check in on that stuff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's sort of everything to do with the detail, just the detail of the animals themselves. Have a look now at some different animals here. So we got the Nile monitor. Up top, I've actually got a pretty interesting one. I've got a snow leopard. She's living on her own at the moment, I think. I don't know if I'll be able to spot her. So she is in there. Oh, she's sleeping. She's just sleeping on her bedding. And I say she, it's actually a he. That's not him, is it? Oh my god, he's just died. Oh no. Oh Jesus, it's so horrendous. It had to happen on the video, didn't it? I had 2 of them and they both just died right as I was about to record now. Well, there you go. So it died of old age. At least it lived to a ripe old age of 25. I was thinking when I clicked it, I was like, why does it say it's dead? It's just sleeping. So let's take another look down maybe at the Nile monitors just really quickly, and we could talk about tech research. So they're swimming around, doing their thing. So if we go to the zoo screen and go to technology, vet research, it's probably said that we finished one. Yeah, so we've actually just done one on the Nile monitors right now. So if we go into that, where can we see it? Here. So this is the veterinarian's research panel, and you assign a vet to do different research. So we can say, hey, Jenny Moeller or whatever, start researching these, and then over time she will like understand and research different things, and that gives us access to either more things that we can put in their habitat, or it might mean that maybe we understand their breeding habits a bit better, so that then they breed faster and things like that. So there's a kind of progression tree for every animal. It's pretty simplistic. You know, you just put a vet on it, and over time it just gets done. It's quite simple in that regard. But you can't research animals until you actually get them into your zoo. So you can't just like research everything ahead of time. You have to kind of learn and deal with their problems as you get them. So that's kind of like your animal management aspects. So the keepers come along and they just make sure the food is all done. The vets will come along and, you know, ensure the animals are healthy and looking okay. And then the maintenance dudes will come along and make sure there's no like cracks in the wall or gaps in the fence, because over time with guests, I can't see any right now actually, but we must be doing pretty well. Over time with guests, you'll see cracks in the windows and you'll see like little gaps in the fences. Wow, we've actually been, wow, it's really well upkept right now. There we go. We can see some holes in the wire fencing here. So the fence is degrading in quality, so maintenance guys will have to come along and kind of sort that stuff out. Now, you might have noticed the protesters, so there's obviously something wrong here. They're protesting, I think, the welfare of certain animals. Now, these animals are really high welfare, so I'm guessing it's these ones that I introduced. No? Everyone seems pretty happy, so I'm not too sure exactly what's going on. But essentially, protesters will come along every now and then when animal welfare dips below a certain amount. They might be protesting something else. I'm pretty sure it is something in there, but I don't know what their problem is. It seems good to me. Everyone's on 90%. But we might just be lacking something. I don't think they actually have any bedding, so maybe that's something to do with it. And then every now and then inspectors will come along and they'll say, oh, we noticed that there's protesters and that you kind of get fined for that. And that's kind of the protesting aspect of the game. So the next thing then I want to talk about is animal habitats themselves. Okay, so obviously we've just looked at the animals themselves, how they are managed. You can see that they're actually fighting. Look at this one, it's backing down. That's the alpha female backing down. Interesting, I don't think I've ever seen that. Maybe she'll become the alpha female later on. That can happen. One of them asserts their dominance after a while. Animal habitats. This is a perfect example of one of the habitats I spent a bit more time making. So this habitat in particular, the entrance will be here. And you go down and you can kind of see the hippo swimming around this area down here when they do go into the water. And you get a view of them up here if you're not. Maybe not the most ideal, but it was one of the more creative endeavors that I had in the game when I started to really understand the creation tools, which was like, I was like, oh, I'll build this kind of paneling that shows you what goes on underneath. And I got the idea because in one of the base levels in the game, they do something similar to that. So this is like the habitat for the hippo. Again, habitat has to make sure that you've got the correct terrain. So in the terrain painting tool, you just have your different amounts of terrain here. And you say, oh, I want to get some rock or some snow or some sand, and you just paint it around. Now, snow will melt unless you have something called coolers being placed in the ground, and those need to be powered. So it's still pretty ridiculous that you can, like, maintain snow in Africa just like that, maybe that easily. I think maybe indoor enclosures would make a bit more sense for that, but either way, that's how it operates in the game. I've hidden my coolers underneath the trees at the moment, and then you'll kind of see that allows you to patch it in. If I turned off all the coolers or if the power died, the snow would melt and it would turn into just soil. So the animals then themselves have their terrain preferences, and you just paint that on the ground. Pretty straightforward. If you've played Planet Coaster or this game before, you know basically how that works, and it's really nice because you can just paint something around the area and blend it based on its intensity. And if you're unhappy with it, you can just press Ctrl Z and undo it, and it just undoes it. It's really nice. It's like Photoshop controls. If anyone uses Photoshop, you use the kind of bracket keys to increase or decrease the brush size. It's very familiar for people who are artists or use Photoshop and things like that already. So the terrain, the animal habitats for a hippo, for instance, they actually need a body of water. So having like a certain amount of the area covered by water is preferential to them, and the more hippos that you put in, the more water you need, and this number will change based on the population that's in there already. Now the maps in the game are actually huge, right? There's a huge amount of space. I think the barrier line is there. So really lots of space, right? Space is really not an issue. With designing a habitat, the game doesn't really recognize aesthetics that much, and that's probably one of my maybe pet peeves about the game, is that it's really up to you how beautiful you make it. Doing something like this where you have kind of a half underwater enclosure, that doesn't really raise the attraction value or the interest of guests or anything like that. I guess it is hard to detect that stuff in programming. It's a difficult thing to kind of analyze aesthetics and what determines what is good looking and what would make sense in the real world kind of thing. That's a lot to ask from a game. So I do understand that aspect of it, but on the other side of things, it's kind of like you can just dump down everything. you can just dump down everything in a corner and it kind of just says, oh yeah, its needs are met, you know, and everything is fine. So designing a habitat is really up to you. It's up to you where you place it, how you design it, the layout, whether or not you do anything kind of interesting with it. Doesn't really change that much. Like for instance with the tortoises here, I designed this little like in-cropping of pathway so that they get this kind of 180 view inside. It doesn't really do anything, but it's kind of nice just for me in terms of a creative thing to do. And by the way, this entire zoo took me, I don't know, 6 hours in total, and that was from learning the game as well, because I ended up clearing out most of what I did and then restarting again. So only in 6 hours I was able to do what I think is it's probably like a quite an average job in general, but I'm pretty happy with it, relatively speaking. And I'm sure after like 10 or 20 or 30 hours you kind of learn a little bit more about how to get more out of your habitats, and then you can kind of actually grab them and place them elsewhere as blueprints and put them on the workshop on Steam for other people to look at and play with as well if they want to get ideas. Even it can be quite cool. So the other little thing, little pet peeve of mine would be how the transport of animals work. You may have noticed that they do just arrive in boxes. Like a box will come, a keeper comes in here, drops a box, and an animal pops out. For instance, with hippos in particular and big animals like elephants, I do find it to be just a little bit ridiculous, just because, like, obviously they aren't fitting through that gate, but that's just the way it is. So the game is very much about the creation process and and just really looking after animals rather than the management process of the game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. But essentially, it's just important to know that there's no like transport gates, there's no like airlifting things in or anything like that. It is quite arcadey in that respect, and just in how animals are delivered. So if you're looking for a really in-depth, you know, we have to manage the safety of getting a hippo in here and manage whatever might be the case, have specific vets and disease control and things like that. There isn't really anything like that. It's more just like, oh, I designed this nice enclosure for my animal. I click to put the animal in, and then it basically just arrives. That's sort of how it works. And for me, that is a bit of a sticking point, because I would like, as a player, I'm a bit more leaning towards the creation aspects of the management aspects of the game, and less towards the creation. But it is more of a viewing gallery for your animals, rather than it is a management simulator. It's more just like, oh, let's just decorate it as nice as I can, just for the sake of the fact that I want to, right? You don't get anything for doing it nicely, but if you decide to, then, I don't know, the payoff is just showing your friends, sharing it on the Steam Workshop maybe. That's basically the only reason why you do it. I don't know what he's doing with that skittle right now, but there you go. So that's kind of how the habitats work and how you make habitats in general. Now, I didn't really talk about the controls in building. I'd like to just do that very quickly. So essentially, you have different types of barriers that you set up. So you just set up an area like whatever you might want. We'll just do something really quickly just to kind of show the general concept. So you have your barrier. You can change then certain aspects of it. You go edit. Maybe you want 2 sections or maybe just the 1 section here. You can then raise that section independently of the others a little bit, and then you can also say I want a window in it, or maybe I want it to be a wire fence, whatever the case may be. It's pretty easy once you get used to it. The controls pretty fluid in how you manage things. It's a great creation tool. It really is a fantastic creation tool. And then what you'd want to do is you want to put on a habitat gate so that your staff can actually access it. So you have a habitat gate somewhere. So that means staff can now access it once you connect up the pathways. And anything like windows or grates or things like this, that means that guests can see in and see what's going on in there. So this is like your basic habitat, right? Something very simple. There's no animals in there, but you go to your animal market and you just place animals in there. They get delivered through the kind of staff gate, and then you can kind of decide what you want to do inside or outside of it. You know, you can adjust the terrain pretty easily. Anyone that's played Planet Coaster or Jurassic World is probably familiar with this kind of stuff, how you can smoothen it. It's all there. It's all very, very fluid. Really can't complain about it. And like I said, if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You can just undo the whole thing with Control Z, and it just winds it backwards essentially and gives you all the money back. So it really is very forgiving in that regards as well. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to talk about then is the actual zoo management of the game. So the zoo management screen can look a little bit overwhelming at times. Let's go here to the zoo overview. Our most appealing animal probably was, seeing as it died, was the snow leopard. So that's after perishing now from old age. The name of our zoo is Zupa. So this can look like quite a lot, but in my experience playing the game so far, you just make an egregious amount of money for really no effort. Like I'm up to nearly $500,000. You start the game at 30,000. And after, I think all I had in my zoo at the beginning was just 2 habitats for tortoises, and I was making like 50 grand, you know, every, I don't know, 20 minutes of game time. And it's a little bit too easy for me in that regard, because I really don't feel like this game has a challenge. It's very much a creative game about designing habitats, putting animals in them, and just like playing around with the creation tools. And it's frustrating to me just a little bit in that regard, because it seems so close to having all the depth that you would need to make a really tight management game, and that seems to be something that Frontier just, I guess, don't care about, because it was the same in Planet Zoo and Jurassic World. They are really just viewing galleries for insanely detailed animations and information about animals and things like that. Animals close to death. Oh no. He hasn't eaten. He's right next to the food though. Not our little Dan Suso turtle. He'll make it. I have no doubt that he'll make it. This is the problem I actually experienced on stream with tortoises. It takes them a long time to get to where they want to go because they're so small. Oh, he's too small to really... He has to just... There we go. Come on, Dan Suso, you can do it. You can do it. Eat your food. There we go. He'll be fine. That's why I think there's protesters. They're like, feed the little tortoise. Oh my god, he ate the whole thing. And his nourishment didn't go up at all. I'm sure it maybe will in a second. I'm very eager to see this now. I'm going to speed time up. Oh, Jesus. If it doesn't, we're in trouble. And some of the cooler aspects is that I really enjoy is in the staff screen. You've got all your staff. You know, we've got our caretakers looking after the place. All of our keepers visiting the different enclosures and things like that. Our mechanics and our vets and security guards. There's a lot of actually stuff to manage and think about in there. And then the staff buildings that are near them that they need to go and take breaks in. The cool thing is like you can have these work zones. So a work zone will basically be like the area that you want to cover for all the people that are coming out of that staff building. So for instance, we've got a bunch of keepers on everything. I've just put everything into one work group, so this isn't a great example, but we are small right now compared to how big we could be. So this is all taken care of in one work group. So you can imagine later on that you'd want to say like, okay, we need to make sure that we've got at least, I don't know, 10 or 12 keepers in this area. That will at least facilitate all of these different things on different rotations. And then you can go into individual enclosures to check on things, such as this one, for instance. Go to staff, scroll down. These are all the keepers that pay attention to this area. And then you can go, I want a mechanic here every year, a vet every 3 months, and a keeper every month. So every month, a keeper is going to come by, drop off a bunch of food, check that there's water, and clear out any crap and stuff like that. So that's kind of the management aspect. So largely you are actually mostly hands-off, but you're given a lot of information about how things are going. And if you really want to get granular, you can always make sure like, yep, every 3 months we've got a vet on here, every 3 months here, but maybe something like the hippos are okay, so they only need it every 6 months. Maybe something like the snow leopards need it a bit more regularly, and so on and so forth. So we've got 4 little areas here. So what we'll do is we'll just do this on screen now. So we need 4 vendors, and we just go boop, 2, 3, 4, and they'll figure out where to go, and they'll work their little areas. And then these places will make money or not, and you can adjust the prices and things like that, but we've generally been alright. Like, even though they weren't required, you know, people's happiness is relatively high, their energy, hunger, and thirst is fine. That's probably because it's quite a small zoo comparatively so far. I'm sure if we had to transport people all the way out there, that would then require their own set of toilets and things out there, and so on and so forth. But for now, it's been quite simple. So something I wanted to talk about as well then would be the actual building of the zoo and how other things relate to each other. So you may have noticed these little facilities out here. So this is a water treatment facility, which actually looks like it needs a bit of maintenance. And that's keeping the water in here clear. If you don't have one, the water goes murky and these guys don't have anything to drink and they get a little bit more... well, actually, they don't get sick, but it just says their water quality is low and they get unhappy, I guess. So you got to make sure you have something nearby. Now that needs to be powered by a transformer. Transformers then cover certain amounts of, they have coverage. So if we have power here, this is our power. I've got 3 transformers, 1 in our base building and then 2 external. they need to be, be able to be reached by maintenance over time. Same goes for the water treatment and stuff like that. So the zoo, the hippo's water has been treated, and so are the water in these different areas as well. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in regards to actually building the zoo was, you get to design the path layouts and things like that. The blue pathways are for staff only, so I've tried to just personally keep that away as much as I can from regular guests, although they don't care. But that's just the way I've tried to design it. The other things you can do, and the big focus of this game, is actually blueprints. So there's a huge amount of materials and things that you can look at in the game to design all these different things. So a nice little example, to give you an example, is the vendors themselves. So for instance, if we were to go to facilities, and then we wanted to say, let's have a look at staff facilities, and say, guest facilities. Maybe we want a drink shop. But then you can get the example that they show you. So you can pop that down, and then you can basically put props on it to dress it however you want, right, with the construction materials. So you could say, I'll put that down, and then I also want it to have like an asphalt roof or a brick layout around it. And you can design your own little shop if you want. And essentially then that will end up being something like this in the end, right? You can design that to look like this by the end. So those are the same thing. You can see that inside it. It actually has the same framework inside it. It's just, it looks different, and it's called a gulpy or whatever. Now, those can then be saved as blueprints and put on the Steam Workshop. And I downloaded a few. I didn't download any shops or anything. And so I downloaded a big research lab. So you might notice that over here, these are all my staff buildings, and they just kind of look like warehouses. They don't look great. In fact, I really shouldn't have people walking around this area. But a research lab here doesn't look very interesting. Now, I'll hopefully put up on screen now one of the research labs that's on the Steam Workshop that I haven't researched, ironically, the materials I need to build it. But if I had, then I could just go back into my blueprint screen and throw down the blueprint anywhere I want that someone else made into my zoo to make it look nice. Now, a part of me feels like that almost defeats the purpose, that the management aspect of the game is so easy that if I was to just put down other people's creations, I wouldn't have anything left to do in the game. So it's a bit weird that you can do that, but I guess you don't have to. So it's good to have the option. Now, some things that I did download were just kind of landscape things. So someone made the Pride Rock from The Lion King, which is actually really cool. It looks great. And you can just like lower it into the terrain. You can kind of angle it and do a bunch of different things with it if you wanted to. And you can actually take it apart and see how they made it and things like that as well. So there's actually bedding in there, as if to say, I don't think tigers can actually go up there into that area. I don't think they can. Maybe they can walk on the rocks. I don't think they can. But that'd be great if they could. Unfortunately, I don't have any lines to test it. But yeah, so that's someone who made Pride Rock. That's come from the workshop. It was very seamless and quick and easy to do it. Another thing that someone has made is this kind of dragon lair thing, I guess. It looks really awesome as well. This also has bedding inside. So maybe the animals do go into it, or it's just purely for aesthetics. But that's really part of the creation aspect. You can see even just within a week or two of the beta running, people have already made some really incredible things, and I'm sure, it's going to get crazy. But as someone who doesn't have the time and probably doesn't have the creative chops to make something like that, I don't know if this game really has that much for me in terms of, because it's 90% focused on the creative aspect, and this is a running theme with this video, I guess. I don't know if I can really do that much with the game because I can never make it look that good. And I look at the workshop and I just go like, oh god, this enclosure looks like absolute ass. Took me like an hour to make this. And it looks like absolute ass compared to, what other people are making in the same amount of time. Now what we need to talk about is how we actually get animals into the zoo. And that's like the last thing really to talk about, and the big aspect of the game that I'm a little 50-50 on. So there's the animal market, and the animal market is actually connected to the internet. And this is a very ambitious thing that I think Frontier are doing. I can appreciate a lot. There's two currencies in the game. You have your regular money, and then you have something called conservation credits. Now, conservation credits are earned based on, well, a bunch of things. It's almost like a free-to-play currency in a way where you complete challenges, you can log in daily, and you do different things like that, and you get like little bits of conservation credits given to you. But then also, you can sell your animals on the market for conservation credits. Now, you can't sell the animals that you bought with cash. You can only sell the ones that you bought with conservation credits or that you bred yourself. So what you can end up doing, essentially, is getting multiple animals from regular cash. Like, I bought all these wild African dogs with regular cash. And then if they breed with each other, essentially then their pups I can sell for conservation credits, and then I can use those credits to basically get more animals or do other things. You know, you can found new zoos. So in franchise mode, you can actually found multiple zoos around the world or whatever. So it's quite ambitious. It's pretty cool when it works as well. Unfortunately, because it is like an always online connected thing, a lot of the time this is like not loading properly, and I'm a bit worried because it's only the beta, and I would imagine the first week of release, when there's a lot of people maybe playing it once, it might get a lot worse. Now that's just conjecture on my part. I haven't seen that happen, but I would just worry that based on the beta, this can be a really clunky, almost web browser-esque UI that doesn't really work that well. And you can see actually the name of the people that are selling them. So this is coming from a guy called JW Animal, BWLWCK, Zulania, and then some of them are also put up by Frontier themselves. Now if you want, you can just search cash-only listings, but the quality of animal is like much worse, and there's a lot less of them as well. So you kind of just have to wait to roll different good animals and stuff like that. So in some aspects, I get a little frustrated at that. Like I'm after just filtering, and half the list has just disappeared. And this isn't changing the filter. I'm just increasing the max cost. The animals are also really cheap. The economy seems to be just really out of whack in the game, for me anyway. I think the cash animals should probably cost like quite a lot, you know? I wouldn't mind if they cost like 10, 20 grand, because then I'd have something to spend my money on. At the moment, I don't really have anything to spend my money on, which is a bit strange. The other aspect of the game then is exhibit trading as well. So it's a very similar kind of thing, but this is animals that you don't really see. They're more in these like little buildings that people just walk into, so you can kind of just imagine that they're in there. I don't think you actually see them be modeled and stuff like that, but you can still learn about them. Still quite a lot of animals there to look at, and that's pretty much everything for Planet Zoo. So hopefully I've given you a really good, well-rounded view of the game. Let me know if you guys like this kind of thing in the comments. Obviously, if you are a creative person, I think this is an absolutely phenomenal, fantastic experience to just jump in, spend hours designing out a perfect habitat and watch your animals kind of run around and live in it and make sure they're okay. You know, that's like what the game is. If you're someone who's a bit more analytically minded and wants a bit more management aspects to the game, from what I can see so far, that's not really there. Now, the game does have a career mode, so I'm guessing that will obviously have challenges and difficult things to do, maybe raising the happiness of certain things to a certain area, to certain levels, having a certain amount of staff. What I would love to see is like try to keep your animals to like a 90% welfare, but also only have X amount of staff, like a low amount of staff. I think that kind of thing would actually make you think about where you need to place things and really get more out of your zoo. I do just kind of always wish that they could have just went a little bit harder on the simulation aspects and made it a separate mode if you wanted to keep it away from the creative stuff, where they could somehow recognize a bit more like what is a good and what is a habitat and what isn't. I don't know how they do that, unfortunately. But then also, like, how do you transport animals in, you know, and look after their welfare in terms of their sicknesses and diseases, and maybe what people think when they see animals fighting and stuff like that. Maybe they don't come back and you get more of a penalty, and maybe it's a bit harder to run the costs of a zoo, because it does seem like upkeep to the animals is really, really cheap. Staff is quite cheap, food is quite cheap, so I think the economy just needs to be tweaked a little bit for me to really get a bit more out of the game. But from what I've played, it is just a really zen and chill experience to go in and just terraform the land, create a cool enclosure, and watch your animals kind of have fun and thrive. And it's really sad when they die, and multiple times I saw, you know, our little baby tortoises perish. I don't know if Dan Suso is still alive in here or not. I can't see him. I'm a bit worried. We have to know. Oh my god, guys, he must have died. I didn't see it. Yeah, he must have starved to death. Well, I don't know what I could have done about that. I mean, the thing was full of food, so it's not on me. Don't blame me. Alright, that's going to be it for Planet Zoo. Hope you guys enjoyed this look at the game. Let me know what you think of it in the comments, and whether or not you think you'll be picking it up or not. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.